Hey guys, and welcome back to Betwixt the Books. Is Michaela here with a slightly late arc review. We're going to ignore the fact that the book came out last week. I didn't read it until Wednesday, and then I was editing the video that came out on Friday, so I figured that that one was important, and I could put this one up this week. No harm, no foul. But I am here today to talk about Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz. This is a hope punk novel, and I have been looking for a new hope punk novel to really hit that itch that I've been having. Earlier this year, I did a video where I talked about the Monk and Robot series because the two novellas in that series came out in a bind-up for paperback together. So if you haven't seen my review of that, that's one of my favorite books of all time at this point. It's one of my favorites to recommend and one that I super love. Please go see that. And since reading those, I have been waiting for something else to kind of hit that cozy sci-fi hope punk itch, and this one did it. If you have never heard of this one before, it is a story set, and I want to say the near future, set in the kitchen of a former ghost kitchen, essentially a kitchen that changed its name over and over again and sold low quality food. Every time their reviews dropped under a certain metric, they just changed the name and sold something different. It was completely run by robots with a handful of human employees, but the robots that have been in this kitchen wake up and realize that they have not been woken up for several months, and they are nervous that they are all going to lose their contracts because the company that they had been working for clearly either went under or doesn't exist anymore, has not been paying the rent on their kitchen, and they have to pay for their contracts. Otherwise, they'll all be split up and have to go find other jobs. They decide that they are going to try and open up a restaurant that actually makes good food. Over the course of the story, you watch them in their journey as they attempt to do that. Being only 165 pages, this is a super short one. It's sweet, it's cute. There are some sad moments to it. And I think that some people might say it's a little too on the nose. I have seen some discussions going on modern books being a little bit too on the nose when it comes to their themes. Some people might say that, but I think because of the fact that it is such a short novella, I wasn't bothered by that. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I would recommend it to folks if you see it in stores and want to give it a try, or if you want to try the audiobook. I'm sure that is also a good option. Just something short and sweet. The reason that I love Hope Punk so much is that it has low stakes in the same way that a cozy fantasy would. Obviously, this one is science fiction instead of fantasy. So rather than adding on to the stress of everyday life in the current political climate that we live in, it gives you something that just sort of feels like a breath of fresh air. The highlight of this one is definitely the characters. In any cozy book, I think that's really what you're looking for, because the plot is usually something really low stakes. In this case, you get a bunch of different robots who vary from essentially humanoid looking all the way to just a set of arms. They communicate to each other mostly via chat logs, and each of them has a different skill that they're really bringing to the table when it comes to making this restaurant the best that it can be. From one robot that has the sense of taste and is able to tell whether the food tastes good, to another robot who, despite being primarily used in cleaning and work with the military, has decided to take up interior design and make the restaurant look as great as it possibly can. Each of the characters sort of has their own arc and what they are trying to do. From one character who looks almost completely humanoid, who is trying to slowly make herself look more and more like the robot that she is and look less like just a human, depending on trying to get to her outsides matching her insides, which is a story that I'm sure a lot of queer folks will relate to another character who is working through a bit of survivor's guilt when it comes to now living after having survived a war that happened between the citizens of California and the rest of America. That character is trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life now, even though some of his friends did not come out of that war, and won't be able to do the things that they wanted to. The driving conflict in this one surrounds the fact that once they finally get their shop up and running, they very quickly start getting review bombed, where there are folks essentially trying to say that the food that they make is disgusting and must have synthetic oil and other things in it because it is run by robots and not by humans, essentially prejudice against the robots here. It is clearly meant to be an allegory for immigrants when they come to this country, and the ways that they face prejudice when they are just trying to live their lives and support themselves the best way that they know how, and the only way that they know how, in a way that is fulfilling and sharing in culture. There were several moments in this book that really hit me emotionally, which in something so short, and following like a pretty decent sized cast of characters, actually is a bit surprising, and I quite enjoyed that. And while I was going to do the rating for this one, when I finished the book, I was wavering between giving it a 4.5 and a 5-star. And the reason I wasn't wanting to give it a 5-star was because it was not quite as good as the Monk and Robot series. But when I asked myself, like, what was wrong with it? Like what would make it dock half a star? I couldn't actually give myself an example. So I'm giving it 5 stars. It is not as good as Monk and Robot. They both get the same star rating, but I do feel like, with the exception of maybe some folks being upset about how on the nose the allegory is, and the commentary that it's trying to make around those themes of acceptance and figuring out who you are in the world and fighting back against prejudice. Aside from that being like a minor flaw, and again, it's so short that it didn't bother me. If this book went on for 300 pages, maybe that would have become a problem, but for me it wasn't, so then I couldn't really dock half a star for something that didn't actually bother me in the end. If you are looking for something in the hope punk genre that is lighthearted, friendly, cozy, or if you want to try a cozy sci-fi because you are normally a cozy fantasy reader, I definitely feel like this is a good one to pick up. There isn't any like hard sci-fi in it. It's definitely like a lighter, like urban sci-fi. It's pretty close to reality. There were some funny moments, there were some touching moments, and at the end of the day, I got out of it what I wanted, which was to read something that made me feel like even after so much tragedy, you can rebuild and you can create community after traumatic events, which is, I think, the goal of the book and something that I think we need to keep in mind, especially right now, again, in the political climate that we live in, that it is nice to see representation of ways that people rebuild after horrific events. Have you read this one? If you have, please leave a comment down below. Talk to me about it. If you have other recommendations of other hope punk books, I would love to read them. It's one of my favorite genres, and I'm always looking for more recommendations. And if not, are you going to read it now? I hope so, because I do think that it's a good one. I definitely do recommend it, and I think that if you have the chance to read it, you should pick up a copy. That's all I have for today. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.